Good day, everyone. I'm Amanda Botha, a standard setter at the Accounting Standards Board. Today, my presentation will focus on how the impairment indicators in GRAP 21 on impairment of non-cash generating assets and GRAP 26 on impairment of cash generating assets are intended to be applied. But before we discuss the principles, just a reminder that the views expressed in this presentation are my own and not that of the Accounting Standards Board, as the board can only express an opinion or view on an accounting matter after an extensive due process and deliberation. Under GRAP 21 and GRAP 26, impairment indicators are used to decide whether an impairment test is required. These standards require an entity to assess at each reporting date whether there is an indication that there is a loss in the future economic benefits or service potential of an asset over and above the systematic recognition of losses of the asset's future economic benefits or service potential through depreciation. Assets within the scope of GRAP 21 are those that have service potential or non-cash generating assets. GRAP 26 focuses on assets that generate future economic benefit or cash generating assets. You might want to listen to the recording that explains how you distinguish between cash generating assets and non-cash generating assets for impairment purposes. There are various ways to assess whether any indications of impairment exist at the reporting date. These indications come from two broad sources: external indicators and internal indicators. An entity applies judgment to determine whether an indicator triggers an impairment test. The list of indications in GRAP 21 and GRAP 26 is not exhaustive, and there may be other indications that an asset is impaired. The indications may need to be read together, but an impairment calculation is performed if any one of the impairment indications are present. Indications that an asset may be impaired, as included in GRAP 21 and GRAP 26, include, amongst others, cessation of the demand or need for services provided by the asset. For example, when there is no longer a need for a school in a specific area, as the demand for educational services has declined due to a reduction in the local population, as many residents have relocated to other areas. The second one, significant long-term changes with an adverse effect on the entity are expected to take place in the near future in the technological, legal, or government policy environment. For example, the introduction of more stringent environmental regulations and carbon emission taxes by the government may have an adverse effect on the services provided by the entity. The asset's market value has declined significantly. For example, an entity acquired a new machinery, but shortly after the acquisition, more advanced and cost-efficient machinery is developed. The more advanced and cost-effective machinery means that the market value of the newly acquired machinery has declined. Following from the previous slide, other indicators of impairment include market rates that have increased, and those increases are likely to affect the discount rate used in calculating the asset's recoverable amount or recoverable service amount. Obsolescence or physical damage of an asset that results in a permanent or significant decline in the service potential or the ability of the asset to generate future economic benefits. For example, a vehicle that is in an accident and that can no longer be used to deliver a service until it is repaired. Significant long-term changes with an adverse effect on the entity have taken place or are expected to take place in the near future that will affect the extent or manner in which the asset is used. For example, a decision to use a piece of land owned by an entity for land filling rather than to rent it out. Another indicator is the decision to halt the construction of the asset before it is complete or in a usable condition. Then lastly, evidence is available from internal reporting that indicates that the performance of an asset is or will be significantly worse than expected. What does it mean if an impairment indicator has been triggered? The impairment indicators help an entity to decide when to test and do a formal calculation of an impairment loss. If, after considering all relevant indications, the entity concludes that there is no indication of impairment, no further action is required. This means that you don't need to perform an impairment calculation. This is with the exception of an intangible asset with an indefinite useful life or an intangible asset not yet available for use. As for these intangible assets, an entity needs to do an impairment calculation annually. If, however, the indication suggests that the asset is impaired, the entity must undertake a formal calculation to determine if there is an impairment loss. Under GRAP 21, this is done by comparing the carrying amount of the asset with its recoverable service amount, while under GRAP 22, the carrying amount is compared to the asset's recoverable amount. This then closes my presentation. You may also want to refer to frequently asked question 3.20, when and how should entities assess for impairment in terms of GRAP 21 and GRAP 26. If you find this presentation useful, hit the like button, share and comment. For more presentations like this, you can also visit our website.